he knew logically this happened years ago, but every time it showed up in his mind every day, it was happening now. And so he's in the presence of this horrific experience, creating anxiety. He couldn't get it out of his head, but you know what did work to get it out of his head? Drinking alcohol. Years ago, I met a firefighter who had been reassigned to desk work because a few years before, because he was, drinking excessively and that was affecting clearly his performance. So he said, my problem is, I'm an alcoholic. I drink a lot. I want to get back into the field, but I can't do it because they won't let me because I'm drinking a lot. And I said, well, when did this start? And he said, well, I was diagnosed with PTSD after several years ago, I rescued a guy from a burning house. And he brought him out to the lawn, to the front yard, and the guy died in his arms. So he could not get that image of the guy's, charred face. I hate to be graphic, but, the smell, the sound, the sight, all of that was like literally burned into his memory. And these flashbacks plus the guilt, maybe he could have gotten there faster. Maybe he could have saved him. Usually that's irrational, but, anxiety, regret, all of this stuff, because the thought, Jim, is timeless. It's not, he knew logically this happened years ago, but every time it showed up in his mind every day, it was happening now. And so he's in the presence of this horrific experience, creating anxiety, creating guilt, regret, reliving it, replaying it. He couldn't get it out of his head, but you know what did work to get it out of his head? Drinking alcohol. And so alcohol was a very effective, albeit imperfect solution, but because it didn't fix anything permanently, he had to keep drinking. So we basically cleared similar kind of approaches or techniques, did some work using his imagination to change how he remembered it without any loss of the narrative. And whereas one minute this tough guy was crying just for a minute or so, remembering that experience as he had many times, minutes later, he couldn't even get the image in his head. Same with the woman with the husband who died. No matter how hard they tried, they could not picture it. Now, some people can still picture it, but they almost feel like, okay, so what? It doesn't make them unemotional. They're simply changing the way their mind, their brain stores that information. And when when the memory changes, which is basically the thought, or a part of the thought, then the belief that, I'm not safe, I'm not good enough, bad things happen, whatever the belief that is learned as a result of the experience, whatever that is, that changes more easily. That's where a lot of hypnosis comes in, is changing the belief. And then when they're no longer having this disempowering, toxic belief, they don't feel anxious, depressed, resentful, angry, guilty, ashamed, regretful, whatever. And when they don't have all that emotional crap, then potentially addictive behaviors and substances lose their benefit. Because if you're already feeling okay, well, that's good enough. But if you're feeling like shit, then you want to do something to feel better. And so I often say, if you didn't feel so low, you wouldn't have to get so high.
This is all just, as I listen to you, it's just so many of the things link in with things that I've been interested in the past. For example, prohibition in the United States. The facts of the matter were, when they passed prohibition in the United States, making alcohol illegal, right? There was a very serious drinking problem in America, right? And it was well and widely known, and it was causing all sorts of heartache, all sorts of problems. So they were absolutely correct that there was a very serious drinking problem in America, right? But the top-down solution, okay, we're going to make drinking illegal then, right? had horrific secondary and tertiary effects, right?
Sure.
Because it didn't stop people. In fact, more people started drinking. I'm fascinated by it because, like, yes, there was a problem, but the solution caused vastly more intractable problems. That doesn't seem to be the case following your methodology.
You know, thanks to podcasts like yours and people's ability to find hopefully good, useful information online, there's more self-awareness as a result of talking about this sort of thing. Because if people don't know it exists, they're not going to consider it.